Hi, Austin Appleby from R3, here to give you a quick demo on the latest updates of our CBDC Sandbox. So what we are looking at right now, just to jump right in, is the deployer page of the Sandbox. So this is the first page you'll likely see. And by deployer, we can direct our eyes down to the Start Build button here, which will automatically provision your entire network, starting with your JVMs on Azure to your nodes on Corda. And this build will take about 15 minutes. As you can see, this one took 16, but I've also built in 14 and 13 minutes. So to direct your eyes to the top of the screen here, I've already opened a central bank node, a wholesale 1, and a wholesale 2. So I'll be probably jumping back and forth between those, so just keep that in mind. So when we first click on our central bank node, we see a video pop up that gives us a short explanation of where and why everything is in the sandbox. So Evgeny, our front-end engineer, will kind of bring you through, and at the end of that, he'll guide you down to the bottom right to this checkbox where we can see our sandbox guide. So the sandbox guide is a step-by-step guide that will bring you through the entire asset lifecycle, starting with the definition of your asset to issuance, to transfers between wholesale bank 1, wholesale bank 2, or wholesale bank 3. So let's go ahead and jump to our CBDC manager and get started with our definition. So we'll go to define CBDC type, and we can come up with any name we like. We'll call it TS CBDC. And we'll choose a decimal place. Why don't we go with 2 for now, as that is standard for cash. However, of course, this can be anything. So after naming and setting a decimal place for our CBDC, we actually see one of the coolest parts of the sandbox, and that is the programmability of a digital currency. So we in the sandbox at this time have 3 levels of programmability, the first of which being a member access control. So we have a short description of what that means for people that are more familiar with, say, a term like KYC. But really what a member access control is it is a rule that allows the central bank to only provision access for certain entities on the network. So wholesale bank 1 cannot touch this asset unless the central bank has approved of that. So we're going to go ahead and say, yes, we want to include member access. Go next, and here's where we see our second level of programmability, that being transaction controls, another short description here. And if we go to add control, we'll see 2 examples of those controls, one of which is a maximum value of transfer between any 2 wholesale banks. Another is a maximum value without us, the central bank, signing off on that transfer. So we'll add a maximum value to transfer for purposes of demo, and we'll make that 1 million. Jumping next, we see our third and final level of programmability at this time, and that is asset controls. Another short description here and some examples, one of which is expiry of the asset after a certain amount of time, so it'll be reissued automatically by the central bank. Another is a maximum usage count, which is quite explanatory. Now, here's another good thing to note here is that these are example rules, and we're actually building on these rules, and we're taking suggestions on what other rules we might add in by popular demand. So let's go next and take a look at an overview of our asset and submit that to the network. So now we can go to our wholesale bank and jump over to CBDC Manager to see that asset on the network. We'll scroll down and we see our TS CBDC. If we want to see our compliance controls, we can say, okay, the maximum value of transactions 1 million. That seems about right for my tier of bank, and it requires member access enabled. So now we know we need to request access to this asset in order to custody it or transact with it. So we're in access controls, and we can go ahead and request access. We'll choose our asset and subsequently request access. So here's a good point to stop and say, what is this button that keeps popping up? What happened on Corda? Well, this actually provides you guys a really good opportunity to look under the hood. So we'll have both a higher level pictorial diagram here, as well as a more in-depth Corda flow sequence that will reference databases. Some of these buttons will link you to a video that has one of our engineers explaining in more detail what's going on. And we also have this button here, Learn More Sandbox Documentation, that will bring you to a dedicated documentation site with syntax and even more in-depth explanations. So jumping back, what did we just do? We requested access to this new TS CBDC. So we're going to jump to our central bank node and approve that access. So we can see member access requests, wholesale 1 for TS CBDC, and we'll go ahead and approve that. Now, jumping back to wholesale bank, we're going to request some of this TS CBDC. So we go back to our CBDC manager, request CBDC. Next, and so we can see how many bonds in our vault we have. We'll go to TS CBDC, hit next again. This is where we'll request our CBDC. As you can see, we're putting up bonds automatically as collateral for this CBDC. However, you can think of these bonds as any high quality liquid asset or a central bank reserve. They're simulatory at this point, and we're looking to expand on that as we speak. So we hit next, and we'll send the request through. Go back to the central bank, CBD issuance requests, CBDC, and we see wholesale 1 here, some previously approved requests, as well as this new TS CBDC request that we can approve. So for the sake of time, I'm going to go back to the wholesale bank and show you that we have this transfer CBDC, redeem CBDC, and request CBDC or request DVP options. But I don't think we're going to have time to go over all of them. If you'd like to see more, however, we would be very, very happy to give you a live demo and talk more about that. So the final thing that I do want to show is our Treasury dashboard, in which we've added a new view that's called Balance Over Time. So this will allow us to select several assets and see what the balance over time is. Now, of course, TUS CBDC is a single data point. However, transfer CBDC, we can see as it loads up that our balance has moved quite significantly over time. So what we can do actually is zoom in a little bit on the last 2 days. To see, and it's going to be a little slow here, apologies on my computer, but we can see our balance kind of changing over time. So if you can imagine, you have a lot of transactions going in and out of this bank rapidly, this updating in turn. This also exists in the wholesale or in the central bank as well. So you can keep tabs on all of the assets going in and out of your network and out of your node, sorry. So that is the conclusion of this demo, and I hope to hear from you soon.